What's up guys, BltzZ here today bringing you another video. In today's video we are continuing what the previous part 1 of the localization interview left off on. That is part 2 of that interview. It's out now and it talks a bunch about fun topics for Remake Part 1 and it kind of gives us some insight on where their head is at for Remake Part 2 when it comes to working on dialogue and translating things. Thank you everyone who joined the channel recently. I love you all and I hope you guys never ever again have a watery burp for the rest of the time that you are alive. Now, without further ado, let's get into this video. Continuing from where the last one left off, the interviewer asks, there are many lines from the original Final Fantasy VII that are fondly remembered by fans. Was that something that the localization team kept in mind during this project, or was it more like approaching something entirely new? Ben Sabin says, due to the game being voiced and the original was not, plus some scenes being structured differently, we obviously couldn't preserve every line even if we wanted to. There were certain iconic lines or references we did preserve, however, such as Barret referring to the plate as rotten pizza and the protagonist's lines when they threatened Corneo in his bedroom. Additionally, I do believe Cloud says "hoo boy" in Remake 2. The French translator says, unfortunately, the French version of the original game isn't renowned for its quality, so even though we wanted to stay as true as possible to the original, we had to make a lot of changes. We did sometimes think about some weird lines from the original French version as Easter eggs, but it's not an easy task, as things have to often make sense for people who never played the game before. The German translator says, while we definitely kept the original lines in mind and we tried to incorporate them where we could, this was not always possible. Given the restrictions we had for our voiceover, our main priority was ensuring that the voice lines sounded natural in German when spoke by the voice actors. The rotten pizza Barret line is definitely one that comes to mind from this topic, and I could not imagine the iconic dialogue not being present in Corneo's bedroom. Hearing the trio Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa threaten Corneo of his family jewels actually being spoken was amazing to me and a great experience of nostalgia. I mean, Smash 'em Rip 'em, which is the song that is currently playing in this video, is not only iconic for the music itself, but it's the title that really gets me. Smash 'em, Rip 'em, Remix, which is just a remix or rendition of Tifa's theme. It's just one of my favorite things from the remake. It's a shame that it only shows up during this short segment in Chapter 9 where we control Aerith and Tifa, but I'm looking forward to seeing this song return in Remake Part 2, hopefully more often. Same with the Airbuster Boss theme song, please bring that back more often. The Hoo Boy Cloud line is so small and in the beginning of Chapter 3 that I literally had no idea what they were talking about and I had to Google it myself. One thing I did notice that they forgot to translate across every single language for Final Fantasy VII Remake was that only 23.6% of you guys that watch these videos are currently subscribed. Hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss out on more live streams and news coverage for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1 and 2. Hitting that subscribe button helps me out a ton and it's a great free way to support the channel. I truly appreciate all 21,000 of you guys. My OnlyFans is leaking very soon, so stay tuned. Please tell us if there are any particular lines or text that you are especially proud of as a translator. The English translator says, I think one of the best lines our team came up with was Cloud's "nailed it, I know, thank you." Moving on, it said in response to Tifa's question about his appearance in Don Corneo's mansion. It captures the character's emotions in the moment so well, and Cody Christian did an awesome job with voicing the line. Cloud tries to play it cool, but he still feels a bit out of his element. It helps that the whole Corneo storyline is full of comedic moments and unique personalities too. I also personally like Reno's introductory line, "I'll see myself in, thanks," as I believe it speaks to his character. The French translator says, it's hard to pick a line that we could feel particularly proud of, but there is one translation choice that seems to have stuck in the minds of a lot of players when talking about those weird flying things that have become known as whispers in the English version. Some characters in the Japanese version use the term uja uja, one of those very typical onomatopoeias that basically means swarming. But in the French version, we decided to have Barret call them, that word, floor cloth, which seems to be more descriptive and fitting. It was also funny because the French voice actor of Barret really wanted to pronounce that word in a correct, albeit obsolete way, which led to some memorable, playful banter in the recording studio. In the end though, we had him pronounce it in the way pretty much everybody does. The German translator says, I personally really like the interactions between Marle and Cloud. Of course, the voice acting plays a large part in that, but I also feel the dialogue itself captures how protective she feels of Tifa and how willing she is to go on the offensive against Cloud. The fact that she's unimpressed with him being a former soldier, particularly in comparison to the other characters, and unfazed by his cockiness comes through especially well. Nailed it, I know, thank you. Moving on is one of my favorite scenes in Remake Part 1. So much that it is a notification for the channel on our live streams, which if you haven't yet, be sure to check out when we go live Tuesdays and Fridays and play old school PlayStation 1 games.
Nailed it, I know, thank you. Moving on.
Cody did such a good job sounding annoyed as Cloud and just stopping the conversation in its tracks right there. They really had a lot of fun in Chapter 9 and it's definitely one of my favorites entirely from Remake. Hearing that the French version calls the Whisperers floorcloth, basically carpet, is very interesting to me. It's also pretty cool that the English dub basically named them Whisperers, and that seems to be the general agreement on the name for those beings. Marl and Cloud's dialogue with each other was also fun as well. I love how Marl pokes fun at Cloud and chops him down a few pegs while doing so. I can't wait for more character banter in Remake Part 2. I think that's the heart and soul of characters for this game in my opinion, and I really do hope Red 13 steals the show in Part 2 like how Barret did for Remake Part 1. Localization for a culture with different sense of humor from the original work's place of origin can be challenging. In that sense, were there any specific lines that you felt really did a good job of recapturing the nuance of the Japanese dialogue's humor? The English translator says, I think the scenes with Beck's badasses did an exceptional job conveying those characters' personalities and keeping fans immersed in the moment. Wordplay can be an incredibly challenging exercise in translation, but I feel all of the badasses flubs regarding due recompense and compensatory damages worked really well in context as a catalyst for the character's animations. I particularly liked its compensation for damages. As Beck's failed attempt to elucidate his point, looky here boys, caught us some burglars with coming into our homes and stealing our shit doing crimes. Also to me at least, feels like something less than intelligent criminals would give as an excuse to mug someone who entered their territory. But all of our translations would have fallen flat if not acted well, and I think the English voice actors for those three characters did an amazing job considering all the tiny animations, close proximity of lines, and general ridiculousness of the characters they had to take into account to keep the humor of the Japanese. Finally, I think Red 13's says the 300-pound sack of it in response to Barrett's "you see the piece of shit we're driving here?" Late in the game does one of the few digs Red gets in the game justice. The French translator says one of Madame M's lines was almost completely beeped in the Japanese version, more for comedic effect than for rating purposes. We believe it would have seemed very weird to a French audience, so we decided to let Madame M have her moment completely uncensored in the localized version. Excuse her French, it kind of reminded us of a famous scene with Lambert Wilson in Matrix Reloaded. The German translator said, I think Johnny is a character that embodies a very Japanese sense of humor, but I also think we did a good job translating that humor into German. He has a general ridiculousness to him that our voice actor portrayed astoundingly well. Beck's badasses definitely sticks out, and for many it's a fan favorite. I do appreciate the over-the-top, exaggerated humor, as it's great to step out of the serious moments from time to time in Final Fantasy VII. And what better area to do that than the intro of Chapter 9, possibly the greatest chapter in Remake Part 1. Red 13 also calling Barret a 300-pound sack to counter whatever Barret says at the end is also hilarious. It's just a glimpse of what we can expect between Barret and Red 13 in the party together. I really love that duo so much, and I can't wait to see the Lab Rat Dog and Gun-Armed Man steal the entire show. Now we'd like to move on to some questions about specific lines and translation choices that we were curious about. The English battle enemy states pressured and staggered are respectively called heat and burst in the Japanese version. Can you give us any insight as to how they were translated in other languages? The French translator says in the French version, pressured was translated to fragility, staggered was translated to shock, like shock, just like in Final Fantasy XIII that features a similar system. To be honest, I did not realize that other languages refer to pressured and stagger as different names entirely. It's pretty cool to see that that is the case, and interesting to me how this usually plays out. I've watched tons of Japanese gameplay early on in Final Fantasy VII Remake's release time, but I did not catch on to the names being different for pressured and staggered that entire time. Wedge introduces 3 of the cats in the neighborhood, Bigums, Reggie, and Smalls. Obviously, pet naming conventions vary widely based on language and culture, and the cats' English names are entirely different from the Japanese release. Can you tell us a little bit about their names and how they were translated in other languages? The French translator says the names in the French version were basically the same as the Japanese version. Flo, Kiba, and Patty for the short versions, which are all food-related names. The German version says German Wedge's cats' names, Sir Monsalot, Madame Bunny Bun, and Pasha Dora, which are Monzi, Bunny, and Pasha for short. Wedge's cats are known by 2 names, their full names and their nicknames. We took the Japanese phonetics of the shorter nicknames and played around with them until we had something cute that felt like real pet names and fit the world setting. We then brainstormed what longer counterparts these nicknames could be based on. The Japanese names are food themed, as is common for a lot of Japanese pets, but we tried to find names that were mainly funny and creative, mirroring German naming conventions. In the English version, when I heard Wedge's cats' names, I could not help but think about Biggie Smalls, but it's interesting to hear that many Japanese pet names are actually named after food. Reno has an unusual way of speaking in the Japanese dialogue. Was that included at all in any of the translations? The French translator says the French language has no equivalent to the zoto that Reno often says at the end of his lines in Japanese, and it would feel very repetitive and unnatural to try and match that with a specific word. Instead, his personality is reflected in the French version by his colloquial tone and vocabulary, like the words mech, which is dude, for example. Reno is just an all-around asshole, so there isn't much of a difference between localizations on how to make the character sound or act. He's just He's just Reno. That's just it. And lastly, could you please let us hear your feelings about the reception Final Fantasy VII Remake has received post-release, or any words you have for the fans? They responded, "We're honored to have been able to work on a game that fans have awaited for many years. It's been a crazy ride, and we're happy to see the team's hard work has paid off in the form of positive feedback, not just for the translations themselves, but for the voiceovers as well, as so many people gave it their all for the foreign versions to be what they are. Obviously though, nothing is perfect, and we'll aim to apply some of the constructive criticism we've received for future installments." This is awesome to me, as it shows that they definitely as a team had a blast doing this, and hopefully for Remake Part 2, both the German and French versions of translations have an easier time and aren't on much of a time constraint going forward. The team is dedicated, and what I love is that they're taking all criticism and looking forward to making improvements in any of the areas that need them. It's always great to hear people doing that, because nothing is perfect, so it's a joy for me to see that they care about keeping up the quality and being consistent. And that wraps it up for this video, guys. I was not expecting this article to come out last week, so it's pretty cool to see that these little segments are coming up for Remake Part 1 and 2. I'm so looking forward to bringing you guys all the news coverage I can in regards to Final Fantasy VII Remake, and of course upcoming news for Part 2. You guys know this is the one-stop shop for all things Final Fantasy VII related, so definitely stay tuned for more and hit that notification bell so you do not miss out when new videos are coming out. Guys, thank you so much. We officially hit over 100 members on the channel. Now our giveaway can officially start. We will be giving away one lucky member or subscriber our first channel exclusive merch for free, and it will be a unique design, only one of its kind, and not only that, you will get one video game for free purchased by me. It has to be the standard edition, of course, but on any console or PC is just fine. I will be in contact for your size for the merch, so please be on the lookout when I contact the winner. Shoutouts to the members on the channel. You guys are the real MVPs, holding it down and making it so that I can do what I love, which is providing content for you guys to enjoy. The support on the live streams have been so phenomenal. I don't even know where to begin or what to say, but honestly, thank you guys all from the bottom of my heart. It really means a lot to me. Truly, it does. I always look forward to more live streams with you all, and stay tuned because Parasite Eve 2 is coming up next, and you won't want to miss when we play that. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new. More Final Fantasy VII Remake videos are coming your way, and you won't want to miss that. My name is BltzZ, and thanks for watching.